All right, everybody, welcome back to the Milligenics podcast. I know we've been on a bit of a hiatus. I think we probably had like a week or so that we haven't been able to upload anything. That's partly my fault because I've just been working on some personal things with my property, and also I have some family in town, and hopefully we can bring that family member on and do an episode about a topic that we have sort of in the bank, right, Sensei?
Yeah, absolutely. The topic that we're thinking of bringing into is, I believe it was dating during the pandemic is
Correct.
a topic. So we're hoping to have this lovely young lady talk about some of her experiences, the goods and the bads that has been going on. We like to focus on the young people because you're the ones that right now that we feel that are suffering a lot. When I
Exactly.
was young, I was out and about, with my girlfriends, with my friends, doing lots of things, and I don't know how I would be how I would be doing with the type of energy that I had back then, staying indoors. So
Mm-hmm.
this is why I think it's important for us to discuss how young people are managing that energy.
Mm-hmm.
The energy to do sports, their sexual energy, everything. Just you know, it's a lot of energy, man, that the
Mm-hmm.
young people have, and being able to not express it must be tough. It's tough for me, and I don't have that kind of energy. So yeah, so that should be an interesting episode.
Yeah, and in terms of what we're going to be talking about today, so we are going to address this in three different ways today. So the first thing that we're going to be talking about, but the topic in general or at hand is going to be about being able to work remotely from home. By this point, I think everyone has had some experience in that. If not their own, then someone, that they know, that they've heard from, and how that's been for them. So we're going to be talking about the positives, the negatives, hopefully give you some advice that we have personally gone through that's helped us in some way and could possibly benefit you as well. And then the second arc of what we will be talking about is for people that have already gone back to the office and what that experience has been like. Neither one of us have had that personal experience. We're still working from home remotely, but you may know of someone, as we do, that we could talk about and what that's been like for them. And then finally, we're going to close out talking about what that transition will look like when you go back. How can you prepare yourself to be able to go from, now it's been almost, it's going to go on 2 years, maybe three for some people. I know you, Sensei, have already mentioned to me that it doesn't look like you'll be going back till next year. So now that we've gotten in, basically used to working from home, now we have to uh, sort of reverse that sort of trend. And maybe for some people, if they're lucky, they don't have to. They don't have to go back to work. Maybe they can work remotely permanently. I've heard a lot of tech companies doing that, Sensei. So I want to give the baton to you, Sensei, because I've talked long enough here.
Hmm.
So just tell us about what it's been like for you working from home, some of the things that you had to do to adapt that have worked for you, that have worked against you. So go ahead and share that with the audience today.
Well, I was having a conversation with my daughter a couple of maybe about a week ago, and one of the topics that we discussed was, how is this is affecting us working remotely. And now that we're a year into this, I mean, literally today is 3/14, and I went on lockdown on 3/16. So in 2 days will be exactly 1 year. It'll be a 1 year anniversary. So that means that I'm going to be on Tuesday. It's going to be that 1 year, and that's just about right because I do remember that we went we went to quarantine on a Wednesday. I remember that clearly. My last day of employment at the facility was on a Wednesday, and I was working remotely on Thursday. So one of the things that my daughter mentioned is that she's quite accustomed to working remotely now.
Mm-hmm.
In the beginning, she hated it. Everyone hated it. But as time has progressed, as human beings, we adapt to our environment.
Right.
And that level of adaptation has taken place to many of us, where I myself also feel quite comfortable uh, working remotely.
Mm-hmm.
So I think many of us are going to stay remotely if given the chance.
Mm-hmm.
I do enjoy being around people. I do enjoy, being up and about. So I think that if we open up the lounges, if we open up stores, if we just open up businesses again, I can do quite well working remotely and then having um, some social time after work. So I think people are going to be a little bit more acclimated to the idea of working remotely. I know that it was really difficult for me in the beginning, but as time progresses, it's gotten better. I've become a little bit more organized. If I have to learn something that I'm not too familiar with, I try to get up extra early, go through it, watch a video, um, put to practice some lessons that I might see on video, and get myself acclimated a little bit more with that software,
Mm-hmm.
and continue working. I think now that's the direction that we're moving. We're basically self motivated, a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more self motivated now. So it's hard though. It's hard to be completely self motivated, completely
Mm-hmm.
relying on yourself. But I think that's a particular strength that's going to help us, or even young people. This might be the new scientist might be right now simmering and working through formulas and through things just because they're working remotely. So we'll see how this happens. I know that for me, as I mentioned to you, Master Roshi, uh, my company is not looking into going back until July of 2022.
Mm.
So we're doing this for another a year and a half or so,
Mm-hmm.
another 16 months. Okay, give and take. All right. So we're prepping up and see how this is going to continue to evolve us
Mm-hmm.
and in the next year, because we've evolved in this one year. We've adapted. So the adaptation process is there now in this
Mm-hmm.
one year. Let's see what happens in the next year. I guess in the next year it will not just be adaptation. It's more about getting ahead,
Mm-hmm.
moving forward. Um, so it should be quite interesting. So I think our level of self motivation is going to improve, but I also feel that our social skills is going to it's going to take a toll.
Mm-hmm.
It is going to take a toll because the introverts are now becoming more introverts,
Mm-hmm.
and the extroverts are forcibly becoming introverts.
Mm-hmm.
So the extroverts are suffering because they crave folks.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but also for the introverts, even though they enjoy being alone, it's also I don't think they enjoy being alone at this level.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think because they still like to have people and friends around them. Maybe not a lot, but at least maybe one, two, or three friends that they can focus and exchange ideas. But right now, I don't even think they may even have that. So that should be quite interesting in how our mental health is going to impact us in the next year or so to come.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you said earlier about the fact that You said you would be fine if you still had those social activities outside of work. So you don't necessarily have to be in the office. I know you would prefer it to an extent because of what you do, Sensei, and working with students. And there's nothing like that personal interaction with people one on one being in the classroom. So it's interesting that you say that because I feel like the way things are going to go is that it's going to be sort of a hybrid model in most companies and most places where you would go to the office a couple of days out of the week and then the rest of it could be working from home. And it's not like before where, they might have in a way scrutinized you for that, right? Or giving you some sort of ill feeling that you were doing that, but it's going to be kind of natural now. As we've gone through this, so it's not going to be frowned upon, is what I'm trying to say, as it was before, because we didn't have a good reason. We didn't think it could work. We're in the experiment right now. We know it works to a certain extent. We may not have the social skills that we did before, but in terms of still being able to work, we can still pump that out. So I don't think that's going to be an issue whatsoever. But talking about like how I've been able to manage and things like that, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, Sensei, but I've actually been working from home maybe 2, 3 years now. And the reason for that was it was actually just one day of work, 1 day a week, excuse me. So 1 day a week. And the way that that sort of got created, Sensei, was that I work with a guy who is a little bit older and he has always talked about and always strived for quality of life, having a little bit of that balance of your family and working from home and things like that. So, among my team, the three of us, we were able to establish that one of us could work from home every day out of the week and it wouldn't impact what we were doing. So it helped us get prepared and used to what we're going through now. Maybe not to the level that it is where we're just working from home every day, but that kind of did help me already, Sensei, to kind of adapt a little bit, uh, as we transition into this point. So that was helpful. I gotta say, it was nice to get that 1 day out of the week, and for me, I think it was a Monday, if I'm not mistaken. It was Mondays for me, so it kind of gave me like a little bit of a 3 day weekend, and I didn't have to worry about driving into the office. It was saving me gas, miles. The things start to little bit add up. It's not a whole lot, but it's a nice feeling to know. So I would say for most people that I was fortunate that I got a little bit of a preview to all this. Now, in terms of being able to manage what we've gone through, I know you were taking your walks after work. I know you still do that, so that's been helpful. You've talked about that in episodes that we've done before. What other things? Let's do this and say, what are some things you haven't mentioned that you could mention that you feel like have helped you to cope, right, with working remotely?
Well, well, I think I've been pretty transparent,
Mm-hmm.
sharing with folks some of the things that I've been doing. So I don't know if there's anything that I keep into myself that I haven't done. Taking my daily walks now that the weather's getting nicer here in New York. Yesterday was my first day of hiking,
Mm-hmm.
so I went back to hiking, and as I was mentioning to you, Master Roshi, my knee was beginning to hurt,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm thinking, man, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to go hiking because my knee hurts, and I don't want to make it worse. And usually that's the approach that a lot of people take. Something hurts, you stop doing it. But for some reason, I said, let me push through it, and
Mm.
I'll just take it easy, if that's the case. I'm not gonna hop and jump and run the way I was doing last year. Last year I was like a mountain lion. hiking through those
Yeah.
through those boulders. And this year, I figured, let me. It is my first time back.
Hmm.
Let me take it easy,
Hmm.
And I gotta tell you, I feel so much better,
Hmm.
and I'm happy that I went because my knee, although yes, it's a little sore, it doesn't hurt like it did yesterday before the hike.
Hmm.
So I think that a lot of times, when we get these little aches and pains, we're immediately stop when perhaps what could be useful is the motion that might actually be able to help a particular part of your body. So so what I've been doing aside from that, it's another exercise that I decided to implement
Hmm.
into my daily routine that has been very helpful, and it hasn't been easy. Is the pull up,
Hmm.
and the pull up, it just kind of strengthens and stretches my back,
Hmm.
spine. It just kind of like it releases a lot of the tension away from.
Hmm.
So that's something that I've been adding to my workout routine, and I noticed that that has helped my chronic back pain,
Hmm.
you know, be a little bit better when I sit down. And now
Hmm.
with this hiking, I believe that it's going to continue to improve. So what I have shared is nothing new. It's things that we hear all the time, uh, but many of us are discouraged because the slightest the slightest pain or the slightest whatever. And by doing that, what we end up doing is we actually making the problem a little bit worse. So because we're in this isolation process, what I recommend, like I've been recommending from the very beginning, from day one, move your body. Find a reason, find a way. So the least minimum exercise that I can put is walking every day. So that at least I'll do the minimum of walking for an hour. But if not, but if I can add the pull-ups, the yoga, and now that as the weather it's gonna get nicer, the hiking, and I'm also gonna implement the bike riding, which usually
Hmm.
starts on this type of climate and this type of climate. I'm going to continue to see if it can continue to improve and get stronger. And by becoming physically stronger, you get mentally stronger too. It's
Hmm.
attached,
It's a good point.
uh,
Yeah.
because in order for you to move your body, you need discipline,
Hmm.
and that discipline of doing what you don't like to do, but doing it anyway, you can take it to other areas of your life, like like your career, like your job. There's a lot of things and there's a lot of chores that we may need to do that we don't like to do, but it's part of the things that we have to do.
Hmm.
So I think that because what I do, it actually helps me in other areas. So I don't really recall that I've been holding on to anything. I've
Hmm.
been pretty transparent. My advice is continue continue moving. Continue say hello to your fellow human when you see them in the street, even with your mask on. Don't completely isolate yourself. We are going to go back. We do need human interaction, even if it's through eye contact and a nod. If that's all we can do, then do it. Don't think that we don't need each other and completely isolate yourself from the world. We do need each other. We are a tribe for thousands of years. This is how we've gotten ahead through
Hmm.
the through networking and helping each other's in helping each other's lives by implementing the type of skills that each individual has that can help other other clan members.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, one thing I used to hear a lot when I was at a company from one of my colleagues, since it was body in motion stays in motion. And I think that one of the things right now is that we have this temptation because we're working from home that it is much more convenient to stay home than to go outside and do all these wonderful activities, that you're doing. And now as spring is here, or will be, I'm not sure the official date, but
Mm.
it gives us an opportunity to start thinking about what are some of the things that maybe we need to, blow some dust off. If it's a bike or whatever activity we haven't touched in a while. And I know I want to get back into the bike riding. For me, I would say that the two things that I've probably done the most has been working on projects in my house, as you know, but also being able to walk the dog. It wasn't something that I was totally, you know, looking forward to all the time, especially in the cold weather. But the fact that it made me get up and have to go outside, like today, for example, today was a wonderful morning to go outside. I almost felt like I was in Puerto Rico. Honestly, the weather was perfect. I was in shorts. I know you're not almost there yet,
Mm.
Sensei, but I know you will get there. But I do. I'm jealous of the hiking because I love the hiking that we used to do. So, so to kind of move forward here into our second arc, talking about people moving back to the office um, that may not have, the sort of luxury, that we do to continue to work from home, despite the circumstances, they may be forced to have to go back to the office because of the nature of their work. I'm sure there's people out there that probably never got to work from home, thinking doctors and nurses and people like that. So going back, what has that been like? Um, I'll kind of go into that a little bit because I've had the chance, a few chances, not a lot of chances, Sensei, but I have been able to go back a few times for some meetings in the office, and basically it's still pretty much a cemetery. It's probably not the best analogy to use, given the pandemic and everything. But I go in there and I know they clean and everything, but it's just still very odd to kind of see the fact that there's really no one there. And sometimes I forget that I left some things there and I don't really need them, but just the fact that I go back and remember that it's there, it brings a very strange, sensation to see those kind of things. But as far as working with people, it hasn't changed. We try to keep our distance 6 feet apart and being able to use mask and speak through the mask. I think that's the most challenging thing is being able to hear and speak to other people through the mask. So I hope that when we're all able to get vaccinated, we can finally get rid of these masks. But I will say one bright side of it has been for me that I haven't gotten sick. I have not gotten sick. I haven't got a cold, a flu, or anything, Sensei, since we've been able to do this. So, that's not just speaking in the office, but, going out in public and, having to wear this. I have not gotten sick. I know, unfortunately, you did get sick, you know. But yeah, so from the people that I've spoken to, it's a strange feeling going back. It's not in the numbers that it used to be before. It's much smaller amounts of people in the office, but that's what they're having to adapt to. And those people, I think, will make an easier transition going back full time to the office. So that's basically what I've been hearing so far. I know you mentioned before we joined that you didn't really have or know of anyone that has sort of maybe gone back to the office, but could you talk about what that would be like if you had to, or how do you think some people would be able to adjust if they could?
Well, some folks have gone back to the office because some folks have children, and the children don't allow them to do any work. So the folks that have multiple young children
Right.
uh, um, have gone back to the office just so they can get a bit of a break, at least for a few hours. They may not stay the whole day, but they may go in the morning, do as much work as possible in the morning before they get back into their homes in the afternoon. But there is one topic that kind of like, again, it was brought up while having a conversation with my daughter.
Okay.
Um, she's an office manager, or at least she was, but right now she's into human resources. She kind of, you know, she kind of moved from her office management responsibilities to human resources because there's no office to
Manage.
manage.
Yeah.
But even though there's no office to manage, rent still has to be paid. Since there is partial folks that went in, they need to make sure that the light is on. So that she still has some office management kind of, I guess,
Duties.
duties.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But
Hmm.
one thing that she mentioned to me, and it kind of stuck to me because this is something that she's doing because she went back partially.
Okay.
But I'm curious if this is being done for companies that have been closed and everyone is 100% remote. And one of the things that she had to do before getting the place ready for partial reopening is is getting an exterminator.
Mm.
Because when she went back to the office to sort of check things out, she saw mouse droppings.
Mm.
So immediately, she got on the ball. She called the exterminator, and they were able to address the problem.
Okay.
But that was because they went back partially, so she was able to see this. But how about those businesses that have closed
Mm-hmm.
indefinitely? How about the offices in those high risers that haven't been used?
Right.
I wonder if this can perhaps somehow put us in another predicament moving forward in the next year to come. When it comes to the rat population in the country, in all those buildings that are not being, all those sites that are not being utilized, and perhaps they may not be utilized for the next few years to come.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of those businesses are going to be closed and they're closed indefinitely, and who knows when they might reopen again. So that's kind of something that I've thought about if that might lead to another pandemic later.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I hate to think, negatively like that, but we all know that rats carry diseases. And if buildings and offices we're not controlling the population, and how it might be in another year.
Mm-hmm.
That's something to kind of like, put in people's, you know, sort of to-do list, that maybe we need to start taking care of that, uh, um, getting some kind of control as of
Right.
now, before we might get out of hand later.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because it's also a good segue into our next final topic or arc in our podcast. But I remember seeing a YouTube video, Sensei, about the problem with pests, especially in New York. I think Boston too. Anywhere where you have large populations of people. And typically, and this was coming out of an exterminator's mouth, he said one of the biggest problems that you will find is always going to be in older buildings, older high rises, places that are, buildings that are next to restaurants, because typically restaurants don't always do the best job of disposing their waste correctly. So
Hmm.
anytime that happens, the mice like to flock anywhere where they can find shelter, food, as you say. So that I could definitely foresee as an issue, because I could just imagine that I'm sure maybe you left a sandwich in your desk, Sensei, that you completely forgot about, or some snacks or something, and that's a haven for, animals and things like that. So that's going to be interesting to see. But I'll tell you something also very interesting about this whole, pandemic that we went through. So I'll tell you this: when my company, before we started working remotely, they had spent a large investment in open collaboration with other people. And I think, unfortunately, it was a accident and it kind of backfired that no one expected all this to happen. So that investment, um, pretty much, like I said, backfired. So, I don't know if we will get back to that position where we'll be doing open collaboration, but it might just be sort of like I said, a hybrid where you work from home, you work in the office, and that's how you collaborate now versus just being in the office and collaborating with other people in that manner. So that's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, so let's get into sort of the last arc here, talking about how do you think, Sensei, it's going to be like for people that have to transition back to the office. It could be on a permanent basis where they say, hey, you need to come back every day of the week. You're not going to get the option to work from home. How do you think that's going to be like? Or how do you think it will be like for you, where maybe you will have the opportunity to continue to work from home, maybe a couple of days a week. How can people do that? How's it going to be possible?
I that's going to be that's going to be a challenge.
Hmm.
And sometimes I just love the way people hear. I hear things sometimes, and it's like,
Hmm.
oh, we're just going to get vaccinated and then live happily ever after. Uh, uh,
Fairy tale, yeah.
and and it's not that easy. Um, it takes it, it's going to be an effort. We're talking about billions of people, millions of them here in just New York City alone.
Right.
And to just say, hey, we're just going to go ahead and get vaccinated and go back to work, that effort might take another year or two
Hmm.
of getting everyone vaccinated because it's it's a big project, man. Getting vaccines for millions of people, and then as we're doing that, there's new people that are being born. There's people that are dying. And this is all just happening all simultaneously, and we are to keep track of all of this. So that's going to be a monumental challenge, not as easy as it sounds on TV.
Right. It's a
And
logistical
then
nightmare.
getting back into the office, who knows? Because I hear things about, the I've heard of things such as, the vaccine is not going to be mandatory. Okay. And I don't understand what that means. I think it should be mandatory,
Hmm.
Um, and then if it's not mandatory, then what's going to happen is that it's going to create like another subculture
Hmm.
where the people that are vaccinated can do some things, and the people that are not vaccinated are not going to be able to do some things. So, in order to, I think, to avoid that separation of society, we may just very well, may need to be mandated to have it to avoid that subculture because it will be a shame that some folks, you may not be able to go to school because you're not vaccinated. You may
Right.
not be able to get a certain job because you're not vaccinated. And so even though they're giving you choices, the choices that you're left with are not very good choices.
Hmm.
Uh, so I think that we need to keep that in mind, how we're going to move forward and how we can make this mandated. Now, I was talking to a gentleman yesterday, uh, Mr. Roshi, and uh, he's a young man. Well, not that young. I'm younger than me. He's 38. So he's almost 40. He's an aging out millennial. All right, he's one of those now. He's one of the oldest millennials. And he said 10 years ago he had a flu shot, and that flu shot paralyzed him for 4 years.
Wow.
Um, it attacked his protein in his blood system, and it paralyzed him from the neck down. and he had to have his heart pumped in order to continue living. And eventually, bit by bit with therapy and strong mindset, because he said he was just determined to walk, and he was always just try and try and try, and doing so, he broke his wrist, he broke his head, he broke his jaw, uh,
Mm.
because the continuous effort of trying to walk until he was able to make that connection. So, but that story kind of, you know,
Resonated.
yeah, because right now we have to get vaccinated.
Hmm.
So even though it sounds, there's a lot of back and forth. I don't know exactly where to be at. I know that it's important to do so. However, who knows how maybe some of us might be affected by it. Not everyone might be affected the same way.
Hmm.
There may be, in those billions of folks, there may be a small percentage that perhaps might be affected in a negative way, and we have to start making some kind of preparations so that we can still care for those for those individuals. But that should be a challenge of transitioning in the future. I don't think it's going to be as easy as it sounds. I think it's going to be an overhaul. I think it's going to be a quite a challenge for the city, for the world, um, to make this attainable.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, like you said, there's really two camps of people. Those people that, do want to get vaccinated, they want to get back to normal. And then you got the other people that are very cautious, as they should be. From the things that I've heard about vaccinations, it takes quite some time to develop these sort of things and test them. And we had to hyper accelerate a lot of this work because of the fact that, this is going to be or has had an effect on our economy, especially in the people that are working with the public, restaurants, those sorts of people, retail, and whatnot, and the struggles that they're going through. This is I think, our third stimulus, if I'm not mistaken, Sensei, that the government's trying to pump back into our economy. And I feel like the way that things are progressing, it's actually a great sort of perfect timing between that and the fact that we're getting the vaccinations. I think this is going to be encouraging. It's going to hopefully give us the boost that we need to get out of this in a way much faster you know, than what other people have been experiencing so far. So I think the timing's right. My prediction is that at some point this year, I could be going back to the office, if not sometime next year, depending upon how fast the vaccinations do roll out. And I think that's going to be a key thing. But there's going to be some fallout from that, from people, in terms of, like you said, the requirements. If you're going for a job where you're working with the public, is it going to be mandated that you have to have a vaccine to be able to work with those people? For example, restaurants, to be a sort of server or waitress or waiter, is that going to be required? It's going to be interesting to see how these things pan out.
Hmm.
I don't know what's going to happen with my company and what their requirements are going to be, and all those things. I think we're just waiting to see how that's going to play out for everybody. But that's basically where I'm at. I would personally like to get the vaccination, Sensei, because I think that, even with hearing your story, and I think I've heard of something like that happen to other people. It's very scary. It's not something you ever want to happen, but it could happen. So I'll be kind of putting my ear to the ground and making sure that these vaccinations work the way that they're supposed to. But that's all we can do at
Hmm.
this moment, Sensei, is just kind of wait it out and hope for the best.
Yeah, no, I agree. And once I'm able to get vaccinated, I'm going to get myself vaccinated as well. It is what it is. I get it. They're chipping us, they're controlling us. I get all of that. But at the end of the day, we need to get back with our fellow humans and
Hmm.
collaborate into life challenges and career challenges. We cannot do this alone. It's not that simple.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
really is.
exactly.
We need, you know, as an introvert, I may need another introvert to help me out. You know what I mean? It's like, and between two or three introverts, we can make something happen.
Hmm.
We don't even have to say something to each other. We can just be in a room and not say anything. But at least I know by having another human being next to me, it just makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, and
Uh,
it's interesting because like the way that I prepared myself, so to say, was like during this pandemic was I was expecting to maybe play more video games, you know, and initially that's kind of what I did. I was able to beat one game and then I started on another one, but surprisingly enough, I have not had time to do any of that. I've just been working, as you know, on this rental property and being able to, I've been really busy with work.
mhm.
It's interesting and surprising that ended up happening. But also with family, keeping the routines that we have, being able to take my daughter to tutoring and all those other things, and man, it's been really challenging. Plus, we have this podcast as well. That takes up our time too. So with all those things going on, I just didn't have time to do what I prepared out to do, but it actually worked out better than it did. And I think the same for you. I think you with the hiking and all the other activities that you're doing. Obviously, it's doing wonders for you. It's keeping you much more healthier, and I think the fact that at the end of the day, and we've discussed this at length, is this time of isolation, this time that we're working from home, I think it's helped us to be more introspective and know what works for us and what doesn't work for us.
Yeah, I agree. I think this time alone, yes, you're absolutely right. I got to know myself a little bit more,
Hmm.
and by doing so, I'm able to, I'm able to surround myself with the right things that I feel is
Mm.
needed for sensei, as opposed to, because before things were just happening. Life is just happening.
Right.
Now, because I'm isolated, I have to choose where my attention goes. So absolutely, it makes you more conscious, and it's no longer like, I'm just going to do something for the heck of doing it.
Hmm.
No, now it's planned, because why are you going to put yourself in a predicament just for the heck of it? You're going to put yourself in a predicament, let's say, for a purpose.
Hmm.
Uh, and then, of course, follow some safety guidelines. Yesterday, we were hiking, but everybody had their mask on.
Hmm.
Yes, we were together. We were not 6 feet apart, because we're
Hmm.
gonna walk. You're walking in a group. But nevertheless, everybody had their mask.
Hmm.
So as long as you're making sure that you're keeping you're abiding by some safety guidelines. We were out in the street though, so we were out in the open
Hmm.
air. So I don't think that we had to worry about so much about keeping our distance. And this is a group that we know, because this is what we do.
Hmm.
So I think by exercising some restrictions, it was helpful. But yes, seeing at least the eyes of people,
Hmm.
I can see whether they're smiling or not. Okay. Yes, you're absolutely right. I may not be able to understand everything because of this mask. Even when I go and order food, I have to order it two, three times, because sometimes what comes out, or at least what the other person is hearing, is not what I'm trying to say.
Exactly.
So, but by doing all these little things, man, just keep your distance, practice some restrictions, and get out there. Some folks haven't been out in a year,
Hmm.
and please go outside. I understand, I get it, precautions. But when you're not getting vitamin D, when you're not moving your body, your immune system actually gets weaker.
Hmm.
So part of it, we have to be walking. We have to catch in the sun. Right now, I have the windows open so I can catch in at least some sun, even though I'm indoors. So try to keep your mind stimulated, and keep your body stimulated as well.
Exactly. Exactly. So with those words, I'd
Mhm.
like to end the podcast today, Sensei. So want to thank everybody for listening, as you do, and as we share the knowledge, as we share the advice and experience, that we hope can generate, you having a better sense of quality of life, of work, personal relationships. So we'll be revisiting you guys again. Hopefully, our next episode will be about dating during the pandemic. But if we can't make that happen, then we'll always find some content that we find interesting, or hopefully you will find interesting for your life. So I want to thank everybody for your time. This is Master Roshi and Sensei. Anything you'd like to add?
No, I think I've said it all. Thank you everyone for listening, to giving us an opportunity to be in your homes and in your phones one more time. I appreciate you all, and we'll be talking to you soon.
Absolutely. And make sure you hit that like button, for YouTube. And we appreciate any comments, any likes for the video.
Or any
And
topics that you may want us to discuss, and maybe we can do a bit of research and see how we can discuss those topics. It can really help us out.
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody. And we'll be talking to you.
Thank you, everyone.